my name is Sierra Sullivan and this is my board game table for the 100-Hour Scholarship Project. The reason why I picked carpentry is because I found a passion for the trade and I wanted to create a project that showcased my abilities and also something that challenged me to my full potential. Some of the main elements of my table are my tabletop. I created a butcher block on my table as well as my panels right here. The reason why I chose to do a butcher block is because over time it'll last longer and it won't move as much and it'll just be overall stronger and it looks good. So these are my panels that sit in pockets that I made on the CNC. They're two-sided, so if you just want a regular coffee table, it's just the walnut wood, and then if you flip it over, each one of them will show a separate game that you can play at any time. Elements, again, are hidden underneath my table, starting with my internal miter splines. So for my legs, I took just 4 separate pieces of wood and cut them at 45 degrees and just ran a dado all the way down each side of them and put just a thin piece of spline in there to strengthen it and just to make it strong. And I wanted to achieve just a seamless piece of wood that looked just like one block, but then in reality it was 4 separate pieces. And then next I have my mortise and tenons. That's what's connecting my frame to my legs. I created a jig to make the tenon, so I got to learn that in the process, as well as making my joints. So this just made it look really seamless against the leg, and like it was just kind of put in there perfectly, and I didn't want to use any nails or screws, so this table is completely hardwareless and is just put together by handmade joints. And then next, my frame supporters, which are also my sliders for my drawer. These are connected to my frame by dowels. So I drilled holes, 2 holes at the bottom and the top, and I just used dowel pins to create a precise hole marking, so each one of my drawers would be precise and in line with each other, and I didn't have to guess or anything. So each one is connected by dowels. And then as well, my drawers I created using a dowel, so dowel slides. I just ran the side of this and my supporting frames with a ball and nose router bit, and I just created a half circle so I could create it to just slide right in. And I did practice on practice pieces just so I could get the perfect spacing between my drawer and my supporting frame. And for my drawers, I just made miter cuts on each corner and ran dado cut all the way around so my thin piece of plywood could slide right in. And that's the same for each one of my drawers. Next is just my game pieces and the additional things. I have just little crib board pegs for my crib board. I just used just 1/4-inch dowel and painted them to the according colors. And I just have my favorite game, Bananagram, in there, so you can take it out and play it anytime. Just some papers and pens. And so my chess pieces are handmade and hand sanded and everything to create each small detail that each one of them holds. So each one is the same as the other pawn. I made sure that each one was the same size and same length and everything, so they were like twins with each other, so when they were on the board it was just appealing to look at. And then on my other one I just made some dice if you want to play 10,000 or anything, any type of dice game, and then I used a wood burner to put the dots, and I just threw some cards in there for my sequence game. And this is just the base, my frame for my table.
Go.
So this is the other side to my panels. This is the alder side that holds my games. And I found that a good and easy way to take them out were to use suction cups. So you just attach it on, and then you flip it, and it just fits nicely in. So for my crib board, I took a layout and I put the template onto my piece of wood and I taped it on, ensuring that it was equal on all 4 sides and it was centered in the board so it all fit together nicely. Then I began to drill all 430 holes. I just kept on drilling, and then as you can see, I have a burned border around here, and I just took a ruler and measured out from each hole to make sure that the lines were equal apart from the holes all the way around, and my lines were nice and straight. I definitely had an issue with my crib board. I had accidentally drilled too far in, and so when I ended up planing my board, the holes started to show through. And so I had to problem solve and try and figure out a good way to cover that up without totally restarting my panel. So I decided that I was going to fill the holes with this automotive epoxy, and I did that about 3 times and scraped it off and sanded it to get ready to veneer. So if I hadn't filled the holes and I decided to glue the veneer on, the veneer would have taken shape inside the holes. So I learned a whole other new skill that I had never learned before, and although I had a big issue with my crib board, I ended up learning a whole new better skill that I can hold with me for like the rest of my life. And then the next board game that I have is my chess and checkers board. I had taken just 2-inch strips of my alder and walnut, and I glued them together just in strips, and then I began to cut them across and just glued them together with the pattern of the chessboard. I ensured that all corners were touching each other and they weren't too far over. The one issue that I had with my chessboard was when we left school, they weren't sized, so I had to size them myself, but the chessboard was already to its final width and length. So cutting the walnut was difficult because I didn't want to cut any of the chessboard off. And then my next board game is my sequence game. So I cut each card out individually, making sure that they're all the same size. I just used a little template of one of the cards, and then I laid out equally spaced squares so each card could sit perfectly spaced from the other. And then I just finished it off with an epoxy and made sure that the surface was flat and the cards were protected. Okay, so some of the obstacles that I did face while making this project was not being able to have the machines available to me at my school. I had to adapt to what I had and to finish this product for the best of my abilities with what I had to work with. When I had gotten out of school, my panels were oversized, so I had the issue of not having a planer available to me, and that was my major setback for not being able to finish my project. I had to figure out a different way to plane them, and that's when I had the amazing opportunity to work with a cabinet maker that let me work in his shop to finish up my project. So the main one was just to deal with what I had and not being able to fully have the machines available to me. And along with that is just needing to fit all of these boards in. I had some obstacles with just getting them to fit in perfectly in the way I liked them to. I had to curve the edges to fit the CNC edges. And definitely the things that I learned while making this project was to work more independently and not always looking for a second opinion, which is good to have a second opinion, but I also have to trust my instinct, and that's exactly what I did with this project. I learned a whole bunch of new joinery that I had never done before. I learned different ways of bringing the wood together, finishing it. I learned how to veneer, and those are all very good skills that I'll definitely keep with me, and I'm very happy with my final product overall. And anything that I would do differently, definitely I would just look back at some of the things that I had done with my holes. I would definitely use a drill press to ensure that all my holes were the same and didn't have the chance to go through my board. And maybe I would definitely, if I had more time, I would take more time and attention to the finishing product of my project with sanding and getting the little dents out that I had kind of passed over when I was trying to get it. For my final product, I am very, very proud of myself, and I feel super accomplished that I was able to get the chance to create something this big and so complex with what I did. I spent around 150 hours on this project, and each one of those hours were spent working diligently and putting all of my effort and skill into creating the best project possible that I could create. I just want to thank Mr. Yendel, my mentor, who has stuck by me through the blood, sweat, and tears of this entire project. And thank you for looking over my project, and I really hope you enjoy looking it over. Thank you.